Yes.
three, five things? What do you think they should know? What were your findings?
Well, my findings at the time were obviously the importance of knowing their stuff, knowing their history, knowing their discipline. And as we all know, that's divided in those two aspects. What is their substantive knowledge? And then how do they come to understand the way in which the discipline works? And often the beginning teachers came in with very proudly with a strong sense of that substantive knowledge and a recognition of their specialist knowledge in different events or themes or approaches to history, but not necessarily as well formed understanding of how their discipline works. And so emphasizing those two things were key. But I always emphasize to them, and I'm sure you do too, that that in itself was not sufficient. It was necessary to be a good history teacher, but isn't sufficient in order to be an effective history teacher, just that. So beyond that, what we might call broader areas of professional knowledge, which we'd expect other teachers to have around pedagogical knowledge, knowledge of the curriculum, both what is meant to be taught or expected to be taught, but what resources and materials are accessible to teachers to use, knowledge of the learners, both our expectations of what we might expect at certain ages and other ways in which we might kind of group young people together, but really then focusing in on the individual and then a knowledge of the context in which they're teaching. And since being a history PGC tutor more, and the work I do more now with internationally is that awareness of how context is so key. There are some things that unite all of us in the teaching profession, whether you're a maths or a history teacher, and then there are things that are specific to the discipline, and then there are things that are international and global. We all experience in the same way the challenge of making sense and taking advantage of new technologies, for example, but also the limits of that. But then also how our curriculum is shaped, what the expectations of a school are, all of those things kind of came into play. But it was really that intersection between pedagogy and knowledge that became the key focus of my research. Those other things were really important, but it was that aspect that was really emphasised.
Right. So how do you mean by that? Sorry.
Well, the having the knowledge, what Schulman calls the pedagogical content knowledge, the interplay between what you know and how to teach, and what's distinctive about that when it comes to teaching history, because that's unique to the teaching of that subject. You know, the use of a really well-crafted inquiry question, the need for young people to both interrogate original evidence from the past alongside coming to understand how other interpretations of the past have been shaped. What strategies, tools, techniques are best equipped for that kind of work.
Good. That's inquiry questions, like it. What one piece of advice would you give to an ECT starting in September as a history teacher?
I would encourage them to remain part of a history-specific professional community in some way. You know, whatever it is, just make sure that you're kind of talking to other history teachers in whatever opportunities you've got, both within the school and beyond. I think it's really important to make the most of what you've got within your school, but also to look beyond your own school so that you remain open to new ideas. And of course, because I work at a university, I would perhaps not in their early career year, but then some of them are really able to balance these things. But I would just be encouraging them to maintain critically engaged with their subject and to consider ongoing academic study, a master's, which allows them to really interrogate an issue or a challenge or a problem in their classroom. And again, beyond the PGCE, I've been lucky enough to work with a number of really great, often, you know, 2 or 3 years into their career, hungry to kind of understand how their classrooms are working now, having done 2 or 3 years of teaching. So I'm cheating, but 1 is a professional community, 2 is to maintain engagement with research, and whether that's generating their own research or reading practical histories or other forms of scholarship.
Good, good. Why are history teachers so important in schools, do you think?
Thanks. So I think it's a really, really good question. Great question to begin with. I suppose the first thing I think about is that history teachers provide young people, young learners, with the opportunity to explore their world in a disciplined and rigorous way. So it allows them to consider things like human motivation, the impact of decision makers, um, the strengths of humanity, and also the limits of humanity and humanity at its worst and at its best, in a way that's real, and that's linked to real events. And I think there are other subjects that do that in the curriculum. I think English is very close in that respect, but these are real people, they're real events, and they have shaped our world today. And that's why I think they're kind of absolutely critical. And I think also good history teaching allows young people to engage in that world, in their world, um, applying a number of different critical lenses, which again, I think under our current curriculum, the direction of the curriculum is key. And what young people face outside of the history classroom, I think that ability to look at things critically is crucial. So I think for those two reasons, and also because it's really it's exciting and it's fun and taught well, I believe that all young people get that opportunity to be stimulated in that way. And it becomes increasingly important that the idea that young people finish their history education at the age of 14 is a kind of national shame of ours. And it should be something that all young people are studying up until the age of 16 at the very least.